All videos and resources on the website are for informational or guidance purposes only and may be updated from time to time as information becomes available. The information contained in these videos, forms, and other resources is subject to change without notice and does not replace or supersede the requirements contained in the Los Angeles Municipal Code or the rules and regulations. DCR encourages all applicants to conduct their own due diligence and seek legal or business advice if necessary. The City of Los Angeles has established the Social Equity Entrepreneur Development, or SEED, grant program. The Department of Cannabis Regulation, also known as DCR, is partnering with Elevate Impact LA to administer the SEED grant program. The purpose of this video is to explain certain documents required as part of the SEED grant program application assessment. The purpose of this video is to explain certain documents required as part of the Social Equity Entrepreneur Development, or SEED, grant program. In order to get to the SEED grant program website, first visit cannabis.lacity.org. Scroll down, and in the middle of the page, you'll see a SEED icon. After clicking on that icon, it will take you to the SEED landing page. From there, scroll down and you'll see click here to learn more and apply with Elevate Impact LA's logo. Click here to get to the Elevate Impact LA SEED grant program website. To get to the information about the documents needed for the grant program application, click on the Assessment menu at the top of the page. Let's review in detail about each one of the 4 grant assessment documents. Please note that all grant assessment documents need to be saved to be uploaded to your grant application when you apply. Before you begin this process and begin filling out the assessment document, you should determine how you will use the grant funds. You must make sure that they comply with the eligible uses. On this page, under Grant Use of Proceeds, we have listed out the categories and subcategories of items that can be purchased with grant funds. It is equally important for you to understand that there are things for which you are not allowed to use grant funds to purchase. Those are listed at the bottom of this page under Ineligible Uses. When filling out the assessment documents, please double check that you do not have these types of expenses on your grant assessment documents. One thing to especially note is that you may not use these funds on expenses outside of your licensed commercial cannabis business, including personal properties, investments, or debts. First, let's talk about document A1, the written narrative, which can be found under the Assessment tab. The written narrative describes how the funds will be used. This is a written explanation of your budget. We are going to require that you upload a budget spreadsheet for how the grants will be used, but we also need a qualitative or verbal description of each of your budget categories. Let's take a look at an example. Our example assumes that the applicant will be spending money in 5 areas: rent, licensing fees, legal assistance, regulatory compliance, and then finally, capital improvements. Your own budget categories and amounts may differ. Using our example, if you're spending money on rent and you're allocating $3,000 to rent, you would simply have to write, our monthly rent is $3,000, and we will use $3,000 of the grant funds for rent. If you're going to use part of your funds for licensing fees, you should simply write that you are going to use some of the grant funds for your state licensing fee, and you anticipate that that licensing fee amount will be $6,000. Now, let's say that you want help with negotiating your partnership agreements, and you also want help developing your employee handbook. That may require that you go and get advice from an attorney, so you may want to allocate $5,000 to legal fees. Next, we all know that business insurance is a core cost associated with being in business. So you may have done some research and discovered that in order to purchase a business, a general liability insurance policy will cost you around $7,000. You would list that cost here. Finally, let's say that you need to add storage to your current location and that it will cost $4,000. Explain that you anticipate that adding that additional storage would be $4,000 in capital improvement cost. This is how we want to lay out a written explanation of how you anticipate spending your grant funds. Back on the Elevate Impact LA website, we are going to now review document A2, the budget. We would like you to submit your budget in a separate format like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. Let's take a look at our budget example. As you can see, based upon the written narrative, the budget is simply a tabulation of all of the different categories. So here we have entered that rent is $3,000, licensing fees are $6,000, legal assistance is $5,000, regulatory compliance, which in this example is the estimated insurance cost, is $7,000, and finally, capital improvements to add a storage unit is $4,000. When you add all of those costs together, your total budget amount is $25,000. What is important about your budget is that the total budget amount is equal to the grant amount that you are applying for. So, for example, if you're applying for a $5,000 grant, we would expect these budget categories to add up to a total budget of $5,000. Now, let's review document A3, the Business Executive Summary. The Business Executive Summary is a shortened version of your business plan. We just want to understand more about the type of business that you're running, how you anticipate acquiring customers, what type of product you're developing, and how you're going to market your services. We expect the Business Executive Summary to be a short document of only 3 to 5 pages. All of the questions that are outlined in this Business Executive Summary example may not apply to your business, but we want you to describe all that you can to the best of your ability. So let's walk through this document for more detail. Section 1 is the overview question. This is where we get your company's information. This includes your company name, your website, your company description in 50 words or less, and if you have a slogan or tagline, this would be the place to enter that information. The next section is the product questions, specifically designed to help you describe the type of product that you are bringing to market. We want you to describe your product or service. Please write about the top features of the product or service and the benefits of those products or services. Then tell us how much money you will require setting up and developing your product. The next section is competition questions. We all know that being in the cannabis industry can be a very competitive marketplace. We just want to understand if you are aware of your competition and who your 3 top competitors are. How are you unique? The next section is the marketing and sales question. So once you've developed your product, a critical question that all businesses have to ask is, how are you actually going to get the product in the hands of your customers? The next section addresses staff questions. A successful business often requires a team. We'd like to understand who is on your team, including your partners and consultants. If having a staff will cost money or working with a consultant will cost money, you have the opportunity to explain here who those individuals are. Next is the infrastructure question section. These are the physical attributes of your business that you will have to spend money on to help you set up your business. For example, you might have to spend money on construction to bring your facility into compliance. You might have to purchase equipment, whether it's computer equipment, or it might even be packaging equipment. Other examples will include security systems, phones, and leases. Next are the compliance questions. We all know that the cannabis industry is highly regulated and there are costs associated with making sure that you stay in compliance. So, this first question is, what type of cannabis business are you actually operating? Do you need to provide health insurance to your employees as part of your labor peace agreement? Do you need to purchase general liability insurance? Finally, being in business requires staying in action. So we would like you to upload your action plan. This plan describes what you need to do next in order to be successful and to make sure that you are launching a long-term sustainable business. List out what you think the milestones are for yourself. These might include securing funding, creating design plans, building out your space, purchasing furniture, or developing a logo. You have the opportunity to list all of your action items in this section. We have labeled it Action Plan Questions. The final grant assessment requirement is Document A4, the Monthly Expense Projection Sheet. The Monthly Expense Projection is a document that requires you to upload an Excel spreadsheet or the Google Sheet format. One of the most critical aspects of running a business is making sure that you don't run out of cash. One of the ways to ensure that you don't run out of cash is by having an understanding of how much money you need to spend, not just all at once, but also over time. So, what we would like to do is have you create a monthly expense projection using our template. This document gives you the opportunity to lay out the budget in a time sensitive manner. For example, if you're applying for $25,000 in grant funds and you are spending $3,000 in rent, do you need to spend the rent in month 1, 2, or 3? Enter the month of the rent in the column of the month you want to pay it. Let's assume you will pay $6,000 of grant funds to pay for your state licensing fees, but perhaps your state licensing fee isn't due until month 6. You would take that $6,000 and you would enter that amount into the month 6 column. Continuing with our illustration, let's say that you are buying general liability insurance for $7,000, but you actually just paid the bill last month. In our example, it's an annual policy, so you probably won't need to spend that $7,000 until month 12. And in our final illustration of the monthly expense projection, let's look at the capital improvements category. In our example, you want to create a new $4,000 storage unit in your business. If you want to actually build the storage unit in your business, you may have to first work with an architect to design the storage and shelving plans. So you might want to spend months 1 and 2 designing the space. You don't want to spend the money for the storage unit until month 3 because months 1 and 2 are the design phase. Using this example, you would put the storage unit cost of $4,000 in the month 3 column. The last step of projecting your monthly expenses is to add all of your monthly expenses in each category or row across from month 1 to 12, and then adding the sum together in column Q. Column Q is labeled Total Year 1. At the bottom of column Q is the total expenses. All of your expenses in column Q going down should equal your total expenses. If you are applying for a $25,000 grant, your total expenses in column Q should be $25,000. This concludes the overview of the grant assessment document. For more information on how to apply, please watch the How to Apply video.